Hey there, good afternoon, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show that's dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So, this is our Sunday night show that we do every second Sunday. It's called Ben's Album Challenge. Comes from one of my subscribers who had an idea that he should give me an album that I didn't know, get me to listen to it, and give my review of what I think of the album. Do I like it? Don't I like it? What song is my favorite? What is it? Kind of like a normal review. The only difference in this one than I would do in a look back is in a look back I usually give all of the information to, like, the album's release date in the studio and all that, and then different instruments that the musicians play. But for this one, I do it totally different. I don't even look at that part. I'm totally concentrating on the album from a perspective of somebody who's just listening to it and knows nothing about it, and just trying to give my honest appraisal. I could go in and look up somebody else's review and put all the information I find about the album on a board, and then basically listen to what that guy has to say, and then maybe regurgitate some of it and add some of my own in there. But I don't want to do that because I think Ben put some time and effort into picking an album out for me to listen to, and he wants an honest appraisal of my opinion, not something I've regurgitated off of the internet. So because of that, I don't really look too deeply into the production or the personnel on the album. I don't even know the names of anybody on this particular album. I did know on the last one because I owned the album, so wasn't as quite as pure as this is going to be. However, I just like people to know where I'm coming from this, because I know if you're looking at the look backs, you're wondering why is he doing it differently. This is part of the reason why, and just trying to give an honest appraisal. I listened to this album 4 times in total. I was going to listen to twice more today, but I have other things I have to do, so I decided, you know what, I'm familiar enough with the album now after 3 listens that I can actually sit and listen to it and hear what I want to hear and pick out what I don't want to hear. And there's always like that stuff on every album. There's very few albums that I listen to where you get a pure, everything's perfect, everything's great, this album's off the charts, should be a world, it's underrated, all that kind of stuff that is just drama. Most albums have their really good parts, and a lot of albums have some parts that aren't so good. But it's how the album feels in the long run overall. And this one is, I think, a good one. So, we're 3 minutes into the video. I haven't even told you what the album is yet. So, the album is an album called from a band called IQ, and the album is called Wake. And I have to admit that I'm surprised that I didn't know anything about these guys. I'd never actually heard of them before, which really surprises me because I like Marillion quite a bit, at least early on in their career, and I watched the Prog Monster. I am the Prog. I watched SOT's channel where they do their Prog show on Tuesdays. I watch that periodically, and they've been doing their A to Z episodes lately too, so I don't know, but I never heard of it until Ben brought it up. Never heard of them, and yet I'd known of Palace and Pendragon and Marillion, and there's a few others that I know by hearing their names, but this one I hadn't heard before, which was surprising to me. But I like them. I like this album. I'm going to tell you right up front, I liked this album initially. The first listen, I liked it, and I knew that he had kind of hit a bit of a home run here. I know that I've taken a little bit of, I wouldn't say I've taken some heat, but people are a little bit surprised at my reactions to his first 2 albums, the Journey debut and Empires by Queensryche. People feel that I probably didn't give them maybe as much interest as probably I should have. I just stated what I thought, and I have to say before we get too far in, I liked those albums. Maybe it doesn't appear that way, but I did like them. I don't know if I like them enough to play them in my playlist. That's, to me, the measure of how good an album is, if it can get me to want to put it in my playlist. I don't think either of them is at that, but this one definitely is. So, having said all that, I want to thank Ben for his time and efforts to put this to me, and I hope that he'll find this more satisfactory to the response that he was hoping for. But I also know that Ben likes it when you tell the truth and you're honest about the album, and because he learns from it as well. So, anyways, without further ado, the album is by a group called IQ, as I said, and it's called the Wake album. I do not have a prop for the album because I don't own it. I have looked for it over the week, but I haven't seen it anywhere. But I do like it enough that I will probably purchase it. I would have liked to have purchased it today so I could have used it as a prop. But plus, I also know when you have a CD, you can play it in any venue you want. Sometimes I get it off the internet. I don't really think the quality is all that great. Sorry, I just ate my lunch and some of it's trying to get escape here. Maybe more information than you want. Okay, so it has basically 7 tracks on it, which is a nice amount of music for a studio album. The album's about 48 minutes long. That's reaching the kind of upper edge of where I like my albums to be. It's probably a little bit over the upper edge, actually, but it's not bad. It's not bad. There are no bad tracks on this album. I didn't give any of the tracks anything less than a 6. That's pretty strong, I think. So the first track is called Outer Limits. This was the track that drew me in right away. I liked this track right off the bat. And for a while it was the only one I really liked off the first couple of listens, and then I started listening to some of the other stuff closer, and some of it I like quite a bit more. So Ben likes me to give my favorite track on the album. So my favorite track is the 4th track called Corners. I gave this a 9. That's really high for me on a first come first serve album by a band that I don't know. I almost never give a 9. The highest I normally give is a 7. Sometimes you get an 8 on occasion. But this song I gave a 9. But I'm going to get into that later. So we'll start with the Outer Limits. It's got some heavy drums on it. Oh, that's the other thing. All 4 of the instrumentalists on this album, the drummer, guitarist, bass player, keyboardist, are all good. Better than average. In some cases strong. I'm not as sold on the vocalist, and I'll get into the reasons why after, but those 4 guys I like quite a bit. They all have different parts in here. If I had any criticism about it, I wish the drummer and the bass player were a little more front and center than they are, and that the keyboards were toned down slightly. But then again, having said that, if they tone down the keyboards too much, maybe it changes the whole complexity of the album. So, and I'm not a production engineer or anything by any stretch of the imagination. So I think the album is really good. I don't really want to change too much about it. The guitar is really good on this track. I think the keys are very atmospheric for the song. And I like the bass ending on this track quite a bit. Pretty solid track. I pretty much like this track quite a bit. I gave it a 7. The only thing about it that I had any kind of issue with that only comes to mind is the vocalist. And the first time I heard the vocalist, I didn't really feel like he fit this progressive style of music very well, but I wasn't really sure why. Something about his voice at the top bothered me, and I didn't really know why. It's come more clear as we go on, and I'll explain as I go along as well. So the second track, The Wake, which is the title track of the album, some heavy guitar, drums, and bass at the beginning, strong keyboards, are long. There's a long part to them that's really in depth, which I like. Some nice guitar, bit lengthy, but appropriate guitar solo for the song. So overall, a pretty good track. I gave it a 6. I gave it a 6 basically because I liked the first track more, and I'd given that a 7, so I couldn't give it a 7, right? The other thing is I don't really like the vocalist on this track. And the third track, I feel the exact same way about the vocalist. Both those tracks, at this point in time, by the third track on the album, I'm thinking that this vocalist isn't the guy for the band, in my opinion. I think his voice is too popish sounding. That's what my feeling was at this point. I still don't really know what I was listening to that was bothering me at that point, but it comes more clear as we go along. So, and actually I like his voice quite a bit on the back half of this album. So I may have changed my total tone about him by the time we get to the end. But for the first 3 tracks, not happening for me. Magic Roundabout is the third track. Some heavy synths to open, with some backing keyboards in there as well, playing undertone, I guess, if you want to call it that. Some nice keys and drums combo as the song goes along. Nice guitar fills in there as well. It's a very atmospheric song. I think it fits the whole mood I get of the album, which is very spacey and very almost surrealistic, but not psychedelic. I don't get a psychedelic feel at all from the album. Atmospheric, kind of moody, but tastefully done all the same. It's got a bit of an eerie guitar bit towards the end, bass and heavy bass the back end of the album, but I think it's all tastefully done and it adds texture to the song, which is nice. Overall, I kind of like the track, but again, I don't like it as much as the first track. And probably a little more even with the second track, so I gave that a 6. They were the only 2 6s on the album. That's good. There's no 5s on this album. 6s is as bad as it gets. So to me, there's no bad tracks on this album. This is a strong album. Okay, now we get to the song that I love. I love this track. There's no way to say anything more about it. It's called Corners. It's just, to me, it's a perfect track. As good as it gets with this group so far. The percussion opening I liked, creating a more kind of a tropical sound to it. It's not a tropical song, so it's not some reggae or calypso song. It's not that, but it has elements of that lends it to that kind of tropic sound, right? I like the vocals on this quite a bit more. This is where I start to really change my tune about the vocalist here. The percussion opening and the keyboard opening and the created sound of this tropical album suit his vocals better, I think, in my opinion. The guitar that are very added some real nice texture to this song. And then, towards the end of the song, which I was really liking the whole feel of the song, there's this kind of a calypso drum sound and a sitar sound kind of mixed together. And I don't know if that's them playing the sitar and the calypso drums, or if it might be a computer generated kind of synthesizer sound. I tend to think it's maybe the former and not the latter, but not 100% sure. Maybe after a couple dozen listens I'd be able to synth it out, or go look at the album and see what they actually did here. But it's a really nice ending to the album. The song, really, I just love this track. It's a track that I will definitely be looking to. This is a track that will lead this album to my playlist. There's no doubt about it. This album will get on my playlist when I get it because of this one track, which is so good, I think. Okay, the next song, the 5th track on the album, Widow's Peak. The vocals are good on this. The guitar, keys, and synthesizer opening all give that kind of solemn feel to the song. There's a bit of an organ bit that I like too that adds to that. There's an interesting guitar bit about halfway through the song that I found it interesting to listen to. The other thing is on this track, towards the end of the song, I hear a kind of, maybe it's just me, but I think he has a kind of fish-like tone to his voice when he's singing. Not a lot, so it's a very small bit, but I hear that, and I liked it actually quite a bit. I think it really shows his range. He has a certain quality to his voice that is kind of popish, and that high end reminds me of a popish kind of vocalist that I know, which is eluding me as to who it is. I'd have to look it up. I tried to figure it out and I couldn't, so I'm just going to describe why it is instead. But I like that part in the song where he does that kind of Fish sound to his voice. And for those of you who don't know, Fish was the singer from early on. And this group came out of that time period, so he may have been emulating it, or maybe Fish was emulating him. I don't know. Anyways, the next track, 1,000 Ways, or sorry, 1,000 Days. Can't spell properly. 1,000 Days. I gave this, that last track also, by the way, I gave it an 8, which would have meant, in most cases, 99% of the time when I'm listening to a new album, an 8 is probably the best that anybody could hope for. But on this album, it's a 2nd, which gives you the strength of this album. So another really, really good track. I like this track a lot as well. So the next track, the number 6 track, the 1,000 Days, guitar opening and vocal opening are both good. Bass and drums and heavy backing, they give a backing feel to it, like the fill, I guess is the way I'm going to say it. Keyboards add some atmosphere to it. It's very solemn song, I think. That would be my overall assessment of the song. But I like the sounding of the ending as well. So again, another really good solid track here for these guys. 1,000 Days. I gave this song a 7 as well. So then we get to the final track of the album. Headlong is the track name, and there is an album version of this that has a bonus track on it. What I was listening to did not have the bonus track on it, and so I didn't say anything about the bonus track. But if I get it and I hear it, I'll listen to it for sure. Okay, this is really where I grasp a lot of what I'm listening to as far as the vocalist goes. Yes, he kind of has that poppy vocal point at some parts at the beginning of the album where he sounds like this pop artist who I cannot think of right now. But in this song, I hear a bit of Roger Hodgson. He's got that same range. He doesn't sound exactly like Hodgson, but he has clearly within the same range period that Hodgson has. It actually sounds good. It sounds good on this. I like it. It may be his best vocal track on this album. Not because he sounds like Hodgson, but I just think that the song lends very well to this sound. The keyboards and synthesizers pair nicely here. The heavy part that builds, there's a heavy part that builds towards the middle of the song, and then it goes back to the more softer part. And overall, this is a very solid track. I gave it a 7. So my overall feel of the album is that it's got some heavy parts to it, and so because it has, at least at the beginning of the album is heavier at the beginning than it is at the end, but there's enough heaviness at the end of the album too that I would have to say it's a little bit on the heavy side, which is good, because a lot of times a lot of these guys spend too much time with the little dinky guitar solos and little dinky this and little that, and it kind of, even though it's nice, it's very quiet. But I like some heaviness in my progressive rock. I'm a Rush fan. I could hardly not like heaviness. Some of my favorite Yes albums are the heavier ones, Drama, Relayer and that. Same with Genesis, the heavier songs, Watchers of the Sky, The Knife. those are to me, and Giant Hogweed, these are all songs that are heavier, and I like them quite a bit more than I do the softer tracks with those groups, and that's probably the same here. Unfortunately for here, the best tracks are all these softer ones, because they lend themselves better to the vocalist than the heavier track. The heavier track seems like he's up in that range that I don't like hearing him in more than he is in the bottom ones. He tends to be more reserved, and I think he fits better with these songs because of it. Okay, so I've been very analytical here, probably too analytical. But my overall feel of the album is that it's got its heavy parts and it's got its quiet parts. There's a nice mixture here. All the songs seem well placed on the album. Like there's no quirky out ones that don't fit into the mix at all. They all seem to fall within the range of the album, giving it a really strong continuity. The other strong part of this album is that the four musicians, the instrumentalists on this album, are all good, and they all play their parts really well. I wish I could hear more of the drumming and the bass player. I think they're both better than they're not as front and center as the two guitar and the keyboardists. But then again, a lot of bands are like that. The rhythm section tends to be a little more backgroundish, which isn't a problem. It's not a bad thing here. In fact, you may add to the album, but I just wish I could hear more. It's just personal, I guess. So the four musicians are great. I think the structure of all the songs are really good. They're all interesting. They all lend themselves to be listened to, which is good. I think the lyrics, I can't really hear the lyrics too well. They seem okay though. Vocalist, yes. The backside, I love them. Front side, not so good. And when I say backside, I mean like the ending part of the album. I realized that this was released probably when there was still vinyl, and there may be a backside. There may be a A side and a B side, I don't know. But I'm just going to say for the beginning of the album, the first three tracks are a little bit different than the back four tracks, which I like quite a bit more. Anyways, it was a good listen to. I enjoyed it. This was a nice album for him to give me, and he's really kind of set me on to finding more out about this band, and I think this is a band that'll fit in with my music scene very well. Really, really tasteful band. I'm just really surprised I'd never heard of them before. Anyways, it was a fun listen to and a fun album to kind of detail out if you prefer. A really good listen if you haven't heard of this band before, or you like that kind of early 80s, mid 80s, early 80s, mid 80s progressive, what do they call it, the new wave of progressive rock music. If you liked Marillion or Pendragon or Palace, you will like this too. They're a little bit, I think, more accessible than those other three. But definitely a good band, solid band. And I'll be looking for more stuff from these guys to listen to. But this album I definitely will get, I'm sure of it. So if you're listening, Ben, you hit a home run. For me, you hit a home run. So we'll be doing 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing another album review, Ben's album challenge. He's given me a Michael Schenker group album. I have only just looked at his email he sent me. I saw the picture of them. I knew immediately who it was. It's not a band that I have ever listened to, so I can't really say much about them other than I know of them. I've known of them for years. I know who Michael Schenker is. I heard the first Scorpion album. I've heard some of the stuff from UFO, and his own stuff. So I'm interested to hear what this is going to be like. It may be something right up my ballpark, or it might be something that I don't like at all. I'm just not familiar with it at all, so I can't really say too much about it at this point. But we'll be giving another review on it in 2 weeks. I hope that everybody will be interested in hearing about that too. So for today, IQ Wake album. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Ben's Album Challenge featuring Michael Schenker Group. So have a good day. Bye.